Hi, everybody.
God, we
I
excited, Bishop.
did it.
Now, of course, we know all these are your followers anyway, but we're going to act like they're ours.
Okay. Okay. Long
So
job done.
we want to say thank you because you didn't have to take out the time to do this. We know you are super, super busy and you have an amazing schedule, but the will appreciates you. And thank you for allowing us to start this movement. And so we wanted to ask you a few questions tonight, and I'm going to jump right on in since it's 9:07. It's 9:07.
Okay.
Uh, I think number one, you're a baby boomer. Baby boomers grew up as television exploded and lifestyle started changing and fundamentals started changing. I'm a Generation X. I come from a baby boomer, and I grew up with the computer revolution. And then the internet started to explode. So then the internet starts to explode. Then we have the millennials who come on the scene and they're doing tech startups and really making the world turn with online vision. They're killing it. And then you got the Gen Zs who are a post 911. They don't know what the world was like before 911. So with all of this, these gaps within the generations, you still have some overlapping as well. So I want to kind of talk about tonight when you look at the gaps in the generations and you see how wide they are, what are some things can be said, or what some topics, subject matter that can be said from the older generation, middle generation, younger generation that can decrease that gap so that um, there's not a lot of ignorance left trying to figure out how to go and how to get there and what to do, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, first of all, I'm not sure that the gaps are as wide as they're perceived to be. A lot of other factors play into it other than when you were born,
Mm-hmm.
like who raised you and how did they raise you and what part of the country did they raise you. My son, who was born when I was my youngest son, who was born when I was 38, I'm old enough to be his grandfather. So his values and his ideas are more like mine and much less like his own generation. So all of that plays a part into it. I think one of the things that's important to understand where there's a lot of hostility toward older generations, it's very interesting because when you're younger, you think that your parents were born old, and you don't realize that a minute ago we were you.
Wow.
Yeah, we were you. And it hasn't been hard for me to keep up because I haven't forgotten that. It went so quick that I kind of relate to the aggressive, assertive, dreaming, entrepreneurial spirit of younger people, perhaps maybe even more so than I do people my own generation who are just basically looking to sit down somewhere.
I'm glad. I want to jump in right there because I know I want to jump in because you took me somewhere that I wanted to go. So I'm just going to jump in it right now. You have been one of the few baby boomers that's on a high platform, high influencer, that has been able to relate to all generations. And you just alluded to some of the reasons why. I want you to expand on how you've been able to maximize your relativity to Generation X, Generation Y, Generation Z. You're one of the few that even the X's still listen to, yet alone Gen Zs.
Well, I got called to preach when I was 17. I didn't respond until I was 19. I got married. I started pastoring at 22. I got married at 24. I got on national television at 30.
Yeah.
So I deeply relate to the plight of young people growing up with the glare of religion in your face. And I've never forgotten it. Uh, it was a fairly successful journey for me, not without pitfalls and struggles and tests, but I've never forgotten what that felt like. And our fathers tended to be a bit oppressive of younger people. And I prayed when I was a young man. I mean, like maybe 20. I asked the Lord to never let me be a young man Saul.
Wow.
You know, and I prayed that when I was very young. So from that point till now, I've never wanted to be somebody who was throwing javelins at the next generation. And then number two, I see the younger people as our children. So whatever's right with them or whatever's wrong with them, we have to take responsibility for it. The third thing that I'd like to say is what I have found from working with a lot of young people, Project Gideon and different things I did down through the years, is that the young people today have problems in places we would not think to respond to. So we assume that you know things you don't know, and I had to learn that we misunderstood some of the things that you did as being obstinate, when in fact some of them were emulating us. For example, you start a church and you call yourself an apostle. We were outraged. You're a bishop in a year. We were outraged. You broke all the unspoken rules, because our generation has unspoken rules. They're not written down anywhere, but if you break one of them, you know, we're kind of salty.
Yes,
You know?
sir.
And I had to first realize that they're not written down anywhere, that you don't know the rules, and that some of the things that you did actually were a compliment to us. Wow. That you saw where we got, but you didn't see how we got there.
Yes, right.
So you just jumped into what you saw without coming through the process that we went through to get there. The process is very important. But understanding that to a degree it was admiration, we didn't understand that. So I've been going back to my generation saying the reason they do that is because so and so and so and so and so, which they're flabbergasted. So what it boils down to is a misunderstanding.
Jesus, Bishop, because I know you, your answers are so full, so I got to throw some darts at you real quick.
Go ahead.
With generations X being beneath the baby boomers, then the millennials being right beneath. I've got millennials and X's in my own home right now, and we're all coexisting together. We had kids at age 16, so we've got them all here, 10-year-old. They're all in the house together. The Gen X is a little bit more prone to discuss his or her failures with the Gen Z and the millennial, the Y. But from experience, not all baby boomers, but the baby boomers had the secret laws and didn't give us the playbook of how. So I know you can give us several reasons why, and I kind of want to hear that, why they didn't show us the journey or the process. But then the X shows the why, the how, to the millennial, but they don't want to see it and don't want to hear it anyway. So, so I'm trying to figure out, I want to say something else, but that's not good to say. So I mean, it's like you're here if you do, and you're here if you don't. So what is that thing in humanity that makes us not want to share, and then when we do share, it's ignored?
Well, what I have learned is not all, but a lot of millennials in particular you can tell them, but they don't believe it until they experience it for themselves.
Yes, sir.
So then they call for the fire department after the house is burned down, because they don't trust your advice to be legitimate. They have to learn for themselves, and so we have to take our hands off because we have control issues,
Wow.
and let the house burn, and that's hard to do.
God.
But we have to let the house burn. Now, it's not true of all, because some people really will listen, but some people will listen, but they still won't follow, because they have to see for themselves that buying a car before you bought the house might not be a smart thing to do. And now you've got an expensive car and no garage to put it in. They have to figure it out for themselves. The consequences are frightening to me, because our children, largely millennials, and when I say our children, I don't just mean mine, but our generation's children, actually got a much later start than we did. So they're just coming into things that we did in our 20s.
Wow.
What scares me about that is you don't have much time.
Yeah.
And if you don't move fast, age is going to catch you, and with your work undone. While you explore and while you examine on your own and you have to see for yourself, time is passing. So by the time you come to the conclusion that I tried to tell you at 20, you're now 38.
Yeah.
and your building years are gone or gone. And see, because you build in your 30s and 40s, you maintain in your 50s and 60s, and then you diminish in your 70s and 80s. So if you're not building when you're supposed to be building, you miss the strength and the energy that it takes. And it's a lot harder than it looks. That's another thing. We made it look easy.
Yes, sir.
We didn't show our scars. We didn't show our wounds. We were taught to suck it up. We were taught to suck it up. So hence the silence. We were taught to suck it up. So we made it look easy, and you looked at us and said, well, I can do that. I can get a suit like that. You know, I can preach like that. I can do that. I can open a business like that. We didn't tell you that we were 3 months behind on the rent, putting money in the business, trying to keep it going, robbing Peter, paying Paul, trying to make ends meet, because we wanted to protect you from the trauma of the process.
Wow.
But in protecting you from the trauma of the process, you thought that the promise existed without the process. And the reality is, there is no promise without process. There is no promised land without the wilderness. There is no success without failure. There is no walking for a baby without falling, because you learn your equilibrium in the fall, not in the walk.
Wow. Wow.
And so all of that is a part of the development of becoming who you ought to be and what you ought to be. And I think that irrespective of, there's a vast age difference in my children, my natural children. My youngest boy is 26, and my oldest are 42. So my oldest boys are old enough to be my youngest child's father. But I didn't try to raise them according to their birthday. I raised them with certain values and principles across the board, something stable, something solid that doesn't move. And I think if you start trying to raise people according to something you read in a magazine, you miss the uniqueness of each individual, because some people are precocious. They mature more readily. Some people are immature. They mature more slowly. And one of the things about parenting is, little by little, the umbilical cord doesn't cut when the baby is born. It cuts over the years.
Oh,
And
God.
little by little, you have to let go. And that's hard for us to do.
Wow.
Because what goes on in my house stays in my house generation is raising the keeping it real generation. So I was aghast at things that my children would say on social media and then cry because people were talking about them. I thought, you gave them the gun to shoot you with.
Yeah.
If you just shut up, that wouldn't be out there. So if you have a problem, you go straight to social media and discuss it with 8 billion people on the planet. And now everybody's got an opinion about your life. Well, for my generation, that's like utterly shocking.
Right.
Because we would never do that. Never do that. Never, ever do that. And eventually you learn that 8 billion people weighing in on a problem doesn't make it better. But that's something you have to figure out for yourself. And keeping it 100 sounds really cool. But the truth of the matter is, if you said everything you thought, you wouldn't have anybody. You wouldn't have a wife. You wouldn't have children. You wouldn't have a job. You wouldn't have a boss. You wouldn't have a pastor. You wouldn't have a father. So this keeping it 100 is just as bad as what goes on in my house stays in this house. That ain't good either.
That's right.
Yeah. Both of them have side effects.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you get married trying to keep it real. One of the reasons the marriages don't work out is that you're keeping it 100. Everything you think is fodder to be talked about.
Yes.
Whereas I can think something and never say it.
Yeah.
Just don't think that it needs to be said. It doesn't heal. If it doesn't heal, if it doesn't make things better, in all likelihood, it probably makes things worse.
Bishop, next question. It seems that berating is a commonplace at times for older generations, which is kind of continuing what we're talking about. How do we harness the intergenerational warfare? Okay, so because we still have the older generation saying this, and we still got the younger generation saying that. In the church, you've got the fathers against the sons, and the sons against the fathers, and the mothers against the daughters, and the daughters against how do we harness that intergenerational warfare, especially in the church?
Well, I don't know that they're against each other. It is a sense of entitlement to think that it is my responsibility to make you successful.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think what happens a lot of times, the reason the fathers and the sons are at war against each other is the notion, give me the portion of goods that falleth to me. Give it to me.
Mm-hmm.
Give it to me. So you want what it took me 45 years to build.
Wow.
To just give it to you because you want it. Well, that is a real problem. Not that I don't have to relinquish it. I'm going to have to relinquish it anyway. But if I don't see you go through process and struggle and development, then I don't think you've earned it. I respect anybody who fights.
Wow.
I respect anybody who tries. Even if you're failing, even if you're stumbling, even if you're tripping, if you're fighting for it, I am your cheerleader. I don't care if you're 12 years old. I am your cheerleader. I will carry the cross. I will bring the nails. I will cut off the ear of the soldier. I'll do whatever I have to do if you're fighting. But if you're laying on the couch waiting on me to hand you something, it goes against everything within me to give you what I bled, sweat, and almost died for. And besides it being assault to my sensibilities, on the practical side of it, there is something you learn in the fight that helps you to maintain it when you get it. The struggle to attain it gives you the power to maintain it.
Yeah.
And so you can't skip school and still make graduation.
Oh,
Just because you like a cap and a gown. I want to walk when they walk, yeah. But you missed the final exams and you cut classes and you didn't go to school. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. And it's not to your benefit for me to give you something that you don't develop up into, because the weight of it is so much heavier than you think. It's so much heavier than you think. I cannot tell you how heavy it is. How heavy is the head of the one who wears the crown? Neck breaking. Neck breaking. So what you're asking for is break my neck.
oh, God.
Yeah. Put something on me so heavy. Take a person who's got bad credit running their house, and they want to pastor a large church, and they've not mastered managing a house.
Yeah.
So now you've got a payroll. Now you've got the IRS. Now you've got the press to contend with. This is my norm. Now you have to deal with the attorneys. Now you have to deal with the planning and zoning committee. Now you have to have a relationship with the mayor. It's not just about you look good in a clergy collar and you can preach. That's what you see, because all you saw was the show. You saw the TV show. You saw the 30 minutes on television. You didn't see the staff meetings. You didn't see the press conference. You didn't see all the other things that had to be managed behind the scenes. You didn't see the fight at City Hall. You didn't see the struggle. You didn't see rising above the haters. You saw the pretty pictures. It's like Instagram. You never post an ugly picture, but you got some. Okay. So if somebody evaluates you totally from Instagram, you're the most handsome person in the world. They don't know that you threw away 20 pictures to get to that one good picture.
That's right.
To post that picture of yourself. Okay. So that's the way we gave you a false image that it was easier than it was. And some of the war is the fact that if I give you the portion of goods that falleth to you too soon, you're going to spend it in riotous living because you haven't matured enough to be able to handle it. It's yours. You're going to get it. But if I give it to you too soon, it's going to ruin everything. I gave my son a car, a Honda, a truck, but I couldn't give it to him at 12. That would not be a blessing. I couldn't give it to him, and he couldn't ride a bicycle. He had to go up through process to get to the point that he could handle it. Getting something that's yours too soon is not a blessing.
I remember you telling me that, if I were to put you up too soon, it would kill you versus helping you. And I'll never forget that. And I'm just taking a personal moment to tell you thank you for how you have raised me in the last couple of years. And I've been with you now for a year and a few months, but how you raise and how you groom and how you prepare and how I wish people could see it, how real you are as it comes to making sure a person is really prepared to do whatever their assignment is. You're one of the few people that you're that hands-on when it comes to getting the next generation or any person prepared. I want to go over here real quick.
Wait. I got to respond to that.
Okay.
One of the reasons that you feel that way is that you have a rare gift. You know how to be a son.
Wow. Thank you, sir.
Every younger person doesn't know how to be a son. He's talking about you don't know how to be a father when in fact he doesn't know how to be a son. So there are things that you do. I've got an invitation to go so and so and so. What do you think about it? I'm getting ready to go to Oklahoma. I want to give you a call first. That's sonship. So when you know how to be a son, it's much easier to be a father than to be a father over somebody who don't know how to be a son.
Jesus, right.
So I wanted to put my fatherhood in context with your sonship.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah.
You said,
And then you value it, and you have a hunger for it, and you have an admitted hunger uh, that is not so permeated with anger, because most young men are angry at their fathers while they are acting like their fathers. It's because you have to realize whatever your father did, right or wrong, he did it when he was your age. So the mistakes that you're making, the mistakes that you're making now and thinking nothing about are going to grow up and be angry at you because you weren't there. So you might as well make peace with him because you're doing it too. He didn't do it at 50. He did it at 20. So when you do it, it was a mistake. When we do it, you're demonic.
oh,
Because you're playing the son's role. But you have a son who's going to grow up and say, why didn't you love me? Why didn't you raise me? Why didn't you stay? When most men don't leave children, they leave their mama. Look at how many mamas are left behind with children. And now you, as the older you get, you have to wrestle with that child. That child can now talk. That child can now think. And that child can now accuse you. And if you listen at the accusations, they are similar to the hostility you have against your fathers, because you're acting like the very person you said you would never be. You see, it is so funny to me because you can go out and have a baby out of wedlock and say, I made a mistake. I prayed for it. I got forgiveness. I'm fine. May or may not pay child support, may or may not show up in the child's life, but it was a mistake. And at the same time, be furious at your father because he didn't raise you.
wow.
And he wasn't there when I played football, and he wasn't there when I did so and so, and you weren't there when yours did. We're not that different.
How do we break that? Is that forgiveness? Wow.
Forgiveness. Because in forgiving your father, you actually forgive yourself. In forgiving your father, you actually embrace the grace of being forgiven, and you also learn from the forgiveness a better way of doing things. Communication. The fight goes out. You can't be restored to somebody you're mad at because they can feel your anger. They can feel your rage. And nobody invites an angry person into their mistakes. It's hard enough to show anybody your mistakes anyway. And when you know that they are hurt by your mistakes, there's guilt, there's shame, there's not having the emotional language to be able to explain to him things. Some things you don't even want to say because you'd have to say them about his mother. So you say nothing at all. And the silence just makes it worse. And then you watch him do exactly what you did. But he does not draw a line of association between what he's doing and what you did when they're often exactly the same thing.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna change streets before we start crying. Okay. What do you wish you would have known before you were 30, before you were 40? What do you wish you would have known?
I had no idea I would get this well known.
Wow.
I had no idea in the world that was going to happen to me. See, very little prepares you for success. I was prepared for failure. My mother taught me how to cook in case I didn't get married. She taught me how to grow a garden in case I didn't have any money. She taught me how to can fruit and make my own jelly in case I was poor. She got me ready for her world. She was born in the Depression. Well, nobody cans green beans now. I know how to grow tomatoes around corn stalks. Who cares? Nobody does that anymore. I know how to get green beans to use the corn stalk as the pole to wrap the pole beans around, because she taught me that. I don't use that. I go to Kroger's. Wow. I go to the market and buy fresh vegetables. But I know how to do all of that. Okay. So a lot of times you're preparing people for a world that they won't face. The one thing that helped me, though, is I was always a forward-thinking person. So I'm always thinking, like, at 64, I'm not thinking about being 64. I'm thinking about being 74. And I'm busy preparing for the next decade.
Wow.
To live in the present tense is to fail to prepare for the future.
So, to live in the present tense is to fail to prepare for the future.
For the future, as if you're going to freeze right where you are. When you're not going to freeze, you're going to continue to age. And with that age is going to come a certain degree of decline. And with that decline, if you don't move while you have the energy, later, by the time you have the maturity, you don't have the energy. So I watch you drive to Oklahoma City and drive back and get back in the wee hours of the morning and still go to church. I used to could do that. I probably could do it now, but I'd be walking in the walls. You understand? But yes, my greatest victory, the thing that I'm most proud of, is that I did not waste my youth.
Yes, sir.
That I used my building years to build. Not to blame, not to whine, not to make excuses. I used my building years to build. And so I'm so grateful. I can't stress how important it is to use your building years to build. Most men and maybe some women are so distracted by love, relationships, and sex when they don't know that love, relationship, and sex is something you could do over the next 40, 50 years. Building is not.
Wow. That is some perspective right there.
Yeah, building is not. You don't love, relationship, and sex you can have in the hood. You can have on welfare. You can have in a shanty, in the country, in the woods, in a trailer, in a park, in your car. In your car, you can live in your car and have love, relationship, and sex. So we go for the cheapest stuff. And the things that really require value and investment, we put on hold for love, relationship, and sex, which costs nothing. You can have it anywhere, at any time, at any place. And yet we put such a high premium on such a low-priced item, and at the expense of missing our building years. Because if you use your building years right, somebody's going to think you're sexy.
That's right. You better know.
You get a good, strong portfolio, a nice house, and a good car, somebody's going to say, he got a sexy nose. That's the sharpest nose I ever saw in my life. You understand? And then we have this added problem that today women have been liberated. So you've been trained for a woman that doesn't exist.
Wow.
The woman today prides herself on being self-sufficient. And even if she wants a male companion, it's almost like wanting a watch. It's an accessory.
Jesus.
You know, it's a pin, it's a bracelet. But she prides herself on telling you, I don't need you. I just want you, you know. And you know, and so the problem with that is men need to be needed.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
we're not needed, we're not present. So we'll go get some skag that needs us and leave a queen that just wanted us. So I'm not asking women to act weak. I am asking them to have the verbiage to be able to say, what do you get from me that you couldn't get by yourself? So that I can focus on what you value and what you like, and I can know that I'm important to you. And because they have not seen functional relationships, most of the time the husband and the wife are both guessing at what marriage looks like, because she came from a broken home, he came from a broken home. Now we're trying to have a whole home, and it's like me putting you on a movie set with no script. So then you start arguing, he don't know how to be a husband, not realizing that you don't know how to be a wife. You know how to be a woman. You know how to be a single mother. You know how to be a provider. You know how to be tough. You know how to be a lot of things. But maybe if you didn't have wife modeled, and this isn't every woman, if you didn't have wife modeled in front of you, you might know how to be a better mother than you know how to be a wife. He might know how to be a better lover than he knows how to be a husband, because he never saw that acted out in front of him. What does that look like? What does a whole relationship look like? Now you bring all of that into the church. And now we're in the church and we're trying to dance our way past trauma.
Ah.
And it doesn't work to dance past trauma, because when you get through dancing, you still don't know how to apologize. You still don't know how to reconcile. You still don't have anger management. You still don't know how to get up when you don't feel like getting up. You still don't know how to be aggressive when you feel like whimpering like a little boy, because mama's not there saying, "Oh, look at my little boy." That's you still mama's little man. I don't care what they say at school. You still mama's little man. That only lasts through kindergarten. But that is what love sounds like to most men. It sounds like mama.
Sounds like mama. Okay. All right. I'm going to turn the corner. I'm going to turn the street. Okay.
Wait, let me say one thing.
Okay. Go ahead.
For a woman raised by a woman also sounds like mama. She's never heard the growl of a male voice. The lid on the toilet left up. The messy way he may do things. She's never lived in an environment with a man. And so it's like somebody in America marrying somebody in Barcelona. You're attractive, but we don't speak the same language. So I misunderstood what you meant, because I never really heard what you said. And so whether it's the man not understanding the woman or the woman not understanding the man, the Bible said to dwell with them according to knowledge. But if you don't have the knowledge, how can you dwell? I'll stop there.
Bishop, here's what I want to know. I'm going to ask some personal things, but I want to ask this. What did it cost to be you? Because everybody wants to be you. I mean, everybody wants to be you. What it costs? And I know you don't have time to tell the whole story. So just give us some syrup. Everything.
It cost everything. Things I wanted to pay and things I didn't want to pay. It costs everything. Let me see if I can be more articulate than that. It costs adjusting my dreams to align with God's plans. It costs giving up on what I would want to do for what I had to do. It costs maturing more rapidly than was normal for a person to have to mature. It cost being diligent while I was in pain.
Wow.
It cost learning how to manage money, people, expectations, and myself. It costs being petrified and doing it anyway. Because God opens up doors that your emotions aren't ready for. And you have to walk in the door, look like Superman, and feel like Clark Kent. And when you win, nobody claps for Superman because that's just what he does. So the better you are, the less appreciation you get because people just say the sermon was good as usual, as if that's just something you do. Or my kids would say, you know how daddy is. They didn't know that daddy was scared like them, that daddy gets tired like them, that daddy gets weak like them, that daddy has carnality just like them, that daddy makes mistakes just like them, that daddy has sin just like it. They didn't know that till they got grown. There are a lot of things you can tell your grown children that you can't tell your little children.
Yes, sir.
And so growing in the grace and the knowledge of God and becoming who I was meant to become was not a choice. It wasn't ambition. It was a calling.
Wow.
I could have been happy being anonymous. I don't need, people say I'm humble, but in reality, it's just that I don't need grandeur to like me. I liked me before. I like
Yes, sir.
nobody knew me. I like me. And so I don't need all of that stuff to make me like myself. But that's also why I'm still married, because until you love you, you can't love other people effectively. And that means you have to love you, flaws and all, because I have lots of flaws.
Yes, sir.
And a lot of people are so hung up on what's wrong with them that they can't see what's right with them.
That's one of the first things, building a relationship with you. That was shaky for me. You remember that. It took you a lot to get me through it, exposing me and getting down to the real me. And because having to live with these walls as if the real me didn't exist, it had become so norm. So with you fathering me and teaching me, it took a long time for you to crack through me to just even, and I'm saying this in front of everybody, to put a heart sign on a text. That was yeah.
Instead of the muscle sign.
Yeah, I used to put the muscle sign up for how I felt.
Yeah.
I wasn't putting no heart up there. But when I first did it, did you text back and I can't believe you did it? I began to evolve, but it took time for that to happen, and your patience with me to get to that place. And I'm going to keep going. Last night you sent me a picture of the event you did. I had text back to you like 50 times and erased it. I'm so proud of you. But I didn't want to say it, I'm so proud of you, because I thought it was out of order.
No.
I was like, how do you tell someone who's the greatest communicator in the world that you're proud of them? But then I thought about it. I ain't sending this to the communicator. I'm sending this to him. I'm proud of him. And that's when I was able to realize. So to hear you say those natural human things, it is so refreshing that you love you. And another one of the favorite things I love to hear you say, I would say, how are you today? How are you? You say, I'm doing good. How's the day? Oh, it's great. I love my life. That was the first time I ever heard anybody say that. I love my life. I said, what? I love my life.
Yeah.
And I want you to take a few seconds, and I know you can't do anything in a few seconds, but I want to get you off of here because I know you need to rest.
I'm all right. I'm not that old.
Can you encourage somebody to love their life?
Let me start with, because you said a lot. It didn't take that much to get you to mature. It really took one sentence. And that one sentence did everything. And the sentence was, I won't leave you.
I was getting ready to say, I ain't going nowhere. I won't leave you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I told you that, everything opened up. I ain't going nowhere. I won't leave you. And what every father has to find is what is his son's biggest fear. And when I found that, then the heart signs came. And that gets down to the core of human pain. I'm not going nowhere. I won't leave you. And that was the nightmare. My natural son, the sentence that opened him up was, I'm proud of you. And he fell completely into the floor. I love you didn't do it. He knew that. His big thing was, are you proud of me? I didn't know that. But when I said, I'm proud of you, he collapsed. See, the thing you have to realize when you got ready to say you're proud of me was it is just as difficult for the father to perform in front of the son as it is for the son to perform in front of the father. Because you describe me as the greatest communicator in the world. I don't see myself that way.
Yes, you are. The
more you say that, the more pressure that places on me to be that. When in fact I don't see that about myself. I see what I didn't say. I see what I should have said. I see what I said too many times. I'm a person, and I remember I spoke for the baccalaureate at my son's graduation. And it was extremely important to me that in front of all of his classmates that I made him proud. That's all that mattered to me. I didn't care anything about nothing else. The teachers, the student body, the faculty, all. But that little Negro sitting back there in the middle section surrounded by his classmates, I wanted his chest to swell up and say, that's my daddy.
That's my daddy.
And when I got that, baby, woo, that was, that makes me emotional. That was absolutely everything. At the same time, he's wanting to know, am I proud of him? Look at the generational tie.
Yes, sir.
It is just as important to me that he be proud of me as it is to him that I be proud of him. So we're so much alike. We're so much alike. I won't even get into that, but we're so much alike. That's the next question before we both go crying. Well, nobody know what we talked about.
Let's go with what is your greatest fear, and how do you manage it?
My greatest fear is to finish strong. To finish strong. I told Oral Roberts came to preach for me. I was about 39 years old. And I told him, I said, it must be wonderful to be you. He was about 70 maybe. He said, why do you say that? I said, because you know how your story ends. And I have no idea how my story ends. And the ambiguity of not knowing how your story ends can rob you of the joy of the accomplishments you have now. Because one thing could blow it all up. And you, in order to be successful, you have to always live on the precipice of failure.
Yeah.
Because you can do 100 things right and one thing wrong, and people will forget everything you did right and only talk about the thing you did wrong. I was just watching Jussie Smollett on the news. Up until he did what he did, all he talked about was what a great actor he was, and the Empire, and how great the show was. Da, 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 da. Then he did something wrong. Nobody remembers. Not one scene. The only thing they remember is what he did wrong. Don't think that stops with him. That's all of us. And if you can live with the fact that you could lose it all, you can have it all.
If you can live with the fact that you can lose it all, you can have it all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that is killer. I got Jasmine, please write that down for me. Oh my God. All right, next question. What's the, I'm gonna leave that one alone. Give me 3 questions that anyone or everyone can ask themselves that will help propel them as they continue to go stronger. What are 3 questions that are kind of like checklists? What are 3 questions?
Who am I?
Wow.
Who am I at my core? What makes me tick? What gives me joy? What is it that when I do it, I get energy from doing it? That's where my passion is. How do I take that thing that I have defined as being truly me and do it in such a way that it becomes sustainable so that I can live my life doing what I was created to do? And then finally is, once I have done that, how do I pass that on to someone else?
You just sit there and gave us 3 of the most powerful questions.
Yes.
With 10 seconds to just take a breath and breathe in, and you had an answer.
Yeah.
How?
Truth. Truth. See, the church is preoccupied with right and wrong. But Jesus did not say, ye shall know what is right, and what is right will make you free. He said, ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. So liberation begins with truth. There is nothing as liberating as truth. And yet it is so difficult to cough it up.
God.
Who am I at my core? Not what did I do, not where have I been, not what am I worth, not what do I drive, not where do I live. All of that's camouflage. Who am I? Okay. And the indicators of who am I comes from what gives me life when I do it. For somebody, it's art. For somebody, it's technology. For somebody, it's parenting. For somebody, it's several different things. But whatever those things are, to focus on those things that are planted in you, organically true to you, and then birth them even if they don't go together. Because they always say I'm a preacher, and I was a man before I was a preacher. So never allow somebody to tell you who you are. They're talking about what I do. Who am I? A lady asked me a question in an interview about 20 years ago, and recently she interviewed me again, asked me the exact same question, and both times I gave her the same answer. She said, when you pass away, and if you were to write on your epitaph a slogan, what would it be? And I said then what I said 20 years later, that I was a good friend. Not that I built great churches, not that I traveled the world, not that I had a lot of wealth, nothing like that. Not that I had a lot of accomplishments or great degrees, nothing like that. That I was a good friend. Because the core of every great relationship, marriage, parent, whatever it is friendship.
Yes, sir.
And to be a good friend means the door will always open to you somewhere. Means that you will always do business with somebody, because people do business with people they like. And to be a good friend is expensive.
Wow.
Because a friend loveth at all times. You can't be that with everybody. That costs a lot to be a good friend. Means I can keep your secrets. Means I can carry the weight of your burdens. It means that when you're hurting, I'm hurting too. It means that when you're up at night, I'm up at night. You can't give that to everybody. But to say that I was a good friend trumps being a good preacher. Because I know a lot of good preachers that are not good friends.
Good friends.
It's shocking how many people climb up in that pulpit who don't like people.
Yeah.
They like crowds, but they don't like people. Whereas at the crux of my being, my wife always says that I'm a better person than I am a preacher.
Wow.
And that doesn't mean that I'm a perfect person or a flawless person, but it means at my core, there are certain things she knows she can count on from me.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that I was a good friend, to me, is a very important virtue. So when I don't like to do business with people that I get this feeling from that makes me think I wouldn't like them, then I could like the deal, but if I don't like the person, then the deal is no better than the person. The deal is no better than the person. If the person is a scoundrel and the deal is good, it's still going to go bad, because at his core, he's not going to be happy till he finds a way to screw over me. because that's who he is. So don't be shocked when a snake bites you. He's not being bad. That's who he is. So who are you at your core? And you may answer that with something so horrific that you go, like David, create in me a clean heart. Create it, because I don't have one. And renew a right spirit in me. That's what salvation is all about. That God has the power to take out this cold heart of stone and put a heart of flesh in there. So if there's somebody listening at us tonight, that when you searched and dug down to your core, all you saw was filth and all you saw was shame, then all you have to do is open your arms up before God and say, create in me a clean heart. I don't even know how to be better. The Bible says none but the pure in heart shall see God. And the word pure is deceptive because it sounds like that the heart is clean. But what it really means is it comes from the Greek word where we get catheter. It means that the evil has drained out through a catheter. And little by little, not all at once, but over the span of your life, he drains wickedness out of your heart. Selfishness out of your heart. Pride out of your heart. And little by little, it takes time. But over the course of your life, we become better people. It just takes time.
All right. It's 10:08. So, see, you coughing. You need some water?
Okay.
Okay?
I want to know what the people think.
Oh, Bishop, they are sounding off. They are sounding off. Can y'all give Bishop some love, please? I mean, his hands lifted. I want to ask you a couple of more questions, and that's it. This is it. What is one decision you wish you didn't make?
I wish I hadn't made.
You hadn't made.
It's hard.
You want me to ask a different one?
No. I want to do the work.
Okay.
I wish I had spent more time with my children when they were little, especially the older ones, because they grew up during my building years. My generation is the sons of the civil rights movement. So people bled and died for us to have a right to buy and build in neighborhoods that we were restricted from. And I was so focused on taking advantage of what my parents had bled and died for that sometimes I was so busy giving them a living that I wish I had spent more time giving them a life. As I had more kids, I got better at it. But in those early stages, fear drove me because I wasn't sure I could pull us up from as far down as we went. We went down to nothing. We were almost homeless. And a lot of times what people don't realize is it's not what you're running to that drives you. It's what you're running from. Being somebody who ended up almost living in the streets with nowhere to go and no power in my house, and it freezing cold in the winter and the pipes bursting, and growing in that environment, the responsibility I felt rested on me to get us up. And I was so focused on getting us up. I played with them. We had toys. We played horsey. I went to the recitals and the rehearsals and the games and the stuff they did. But I wish I had spent more time with them because you only have that time once. and you never, no matter how long they live, they never get to be a little kid again. And there is no love like the love of a little kid. And I was working. So that's probably the biggest thing. I was winning the world.
Yes, sir.
They would probably disagree with me because they say I managed to be there a lot. But I wish I had been there more, because though they are still here, they will never be that again. I used to, I used to put them on my back and swing them around and say, "Where you at?" And they'd be swinging in the air, legs swinging in the air. I can hear you, but I can't find you. They'd be swinging in the air, and giggling and carrying on. That will never happen again. I put one on one shoulder and one on the other shoulder and took pictures with them, with my arms out like this. That will never happen again. It's not the big things that make life wonderful. It's the little bitty things that cost absolutely nothing.
You have such a way of communicating truth. Nobody can do it the way you do. Let me keep moving. What do you admire in the younger generation today?
Oh, gosh. I love their hunger. I love their hunger. Oh, my God, I love their hunger. I love their creativity. I love their curiosity. I love the fact that they're not as judgmental as we were.
Wow.
I love the fact that they love Jesus, but they're not as religious as we were. I love the fact that they can be transparent more readily than our generation could. Our generation has a hard time stripping. It's painful. I love the fact that they have the kind of minds that absorb huge quantities of information, and by and large are very smart. I have found that they don't always know what to do with that information, but they do have that information. I love the fact that they appreciate fatherhood, starve for it, crave for it, travel for it, yearn for it. And I love it because all you're asking me to do is be what I already am.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. A father isn't something you do, it's something you are. And you can never not be that. I will always be that. I was a father before I had a child.
Wow.
It was the thing I always wanted. I was a father before I ever had a child. So a fathering nature is in my heart. A wife is a wife before she gets married. If she's not a wife before, the Bible said, whosoever findeth a wife findeth a good thing. If she wasn't a wife when you found her, she was just a woman, you won't be able to turn her into a wife. So to do that and to be that to a generation, from here to Africa, to Zimbabwe, to South Africa, to Cape Town, to Lagos. By the way, if you're logged on and you're in Lagos, I'm coming.
That's right.
Yeah, I'll be with you in a week. To get to do that, to point the way, to help them over the little hurdles. It's little hurdles that are stopping our young people from going ahead. It's not big stuff. It's little bitty things. Because the only model they have is through social media.
Yes, sir.
And so when it goes past social media, they go blind because all they can see is post. And so they don't know what to do with the radio interview. They don't know what to do with the television interview. They don't know what to do when the phone dies. You got to be able to go around what dies.
Wow.
The other night I wanted some biscuits, and I didn't have no biscuits in the house. But I had some flour and some baking powder, some salt and some sugar, and I had some butter. And I took the butter that was frozen, and I grated it into the flour and the salt and the baking powder, and I poured milk in it, and I made 4 biscuits. Just 4. A lot of people would have had to go to the grocery store and get canned biscuits. You got to have more than one way of accomplishing what you're trying to do. If you don't have but one way to do it, don't do it.
Wow.
There's got to be another way that if this doesn't work, you got to include this in your thinking. If this doesn't work, I'll do blank. The more you have that, the more you'll be able to succeed. Without that, the enemy can cut down one bridge and the journey is over. But if he knows you're the kind of fool that will take a canoe, and if you don't have a canoe, you'll get on a raft. And if you don't have a raft, you'll cut down that tree and walk across that tree branch to get across that river. You're unstoppable.
Okay, Bishop, we coming to a close. All right. Are you okay?
I'm good.
As a young man, did your attractiveness to political parties shift? I'm not asking you to give us your political affiliation, but did you shift in your thinking politically as you grew as a baby boomer to where you are now?
Great question. I've never been loyal to a party. I've been loyal to a great leader. And I've seen great Democratic leaders, and I've seen great Republican leaders. I have never seen a leader I completely agreed with about everything. But if I thought that they had what the country needed at that moment to take the country further, I'm a big leadership person.
Wow.
I'm a big leadership person. Leadership is very, 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 very important to me. Whether it's a restaurant leader or a government leader, leadership is very important because leadership means I have to be somewhere behind you. And that means that you have to be so far in front of me that you leave me room to drive at the speed of my potential and not hit you. Yeah. So there's a certain smartness and a certain finesse and a certain savvy and a certain strategy that makes you a leader.
Wow.
There's when COVID came, I thought I was responsible for the entire planet. I jumped up. I was on everything. MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, talking to everybody. I'm a leader.
That's right.
I called our church. I set in protocols. I shut things down. I moved things around. I did everything that I thought I could do to protect everything I was responsible for. And then I went out to the world and said, we're going to get through this. It's the FDR statement. We have nothing to fear but fear itself.
Fear itself.
That's leaders say things that bring calmness to crisis. Leaders give direction when all sight is gone. Leaders don't walk away from the fight because it's tough. I would have been one of those guys playing the violin on the Titanic when it went down.
I got you.
Until my mouth was full of water.
Wow.
So I've been married 39 years. I've been preaching 45 years. I've got people with me that knew me since kindergarten. Longevity is important. Consistency matters. You can't quit because you're tired. Because you're going to get tired of doing everything. If I drop you off the edge of a cliff and you holding on to a rope, you can't let go because you get tired. Because if you let go, you're going to die. Quitting is easy. All you got to do to quit is let go. The thing is the art of holding on.
Yeah.
Tying a knot in the rope and holding on to it till your hands bleed, and then scurrying up and holding on to it till your feet bleed. And when your feet start bleeding, going back and put your arms around it. You got to find a way to hold on. And this generation doesn't always know how to hold on when things hurt.
Yes, sir.
Because they have never had pain like that. And pain is a part of process. I have preached in pain. I have preached when I couldn't walk. I was so embarrassed when I had back surgery, trying to keep the church from seeing how bad I hurt. I would stand up before they called for me so I could get up and then walk over to the platform. And the comedian that imitates me walking like this doesn't know that I walked like that because my back was hurting.
Yes, sir.
But I walked.
You kept on preaching.
I kept on preaching. I kept on preaching. My back was swollen. My bandages were bleeding. But I kept on preaching. I stood there when it was tough, and I earned the right to stand there when it wasn't tough by standing there when it was tough. And when it got where I couldn't stand anymore, I set a chair in the middle of the church and preached from the chair and spinned around and around on the chair and kept on preaching. See, I told God, you can find people who are more able, but no one who is more willing. So if I give you my willing, please give me your able. And I will prophesy as long as you want me to.
Yeah. All right, let's go. Anybody that knows you up close or from a distance know that you are a strategian. You are a strategist. What is real strategy? And how do you make strategy sustainable over time You've been at the top of the game, if that's politically correct to say, for years. How did you come up with a strategy that has been so sustainable through generations?
You want to be far enough in front of people to be able to lead them, but close enough to them to be able to feel them.
Wow.
I had a conversation with Tyler Perry one day, and he said to me, he was doing movies and stuff and building his studio and all that. And he said, I'm getting ready to take Madea and go back on the road again. And I knew he was getting ready to retire Madea. I said, why are you doing that? He said, because I'm too far away from the people. Television doesn't allow me to hear what makes them laugh.
Wow.
And I can't hear what makes them cry. And in order for me to be able to pitch right, I need to hear them laugh. I need to see them cry so that I can lead them. And that to me is the great art of not losing the pulse of your wife, not losing the pulse of your children, not losing the pulse of your staff. An old man told me when I started preaching years ago, he said, his name was Bishop Bronner, not the one who run the organization, but he related to it. He said, when you sit up in the pulpit, he said, before you preach, he said, look the sheep over to make sure that what you have prepared fits the condition of the sheep. That pulse beat of feeling the pulse of where people are. And I knew when 9/11 came and CNN had me on for almost 8 hours, I knew when MSNBC asked me to pray for the nation and had never done it before, I knew the nation was afraid. And what little bit I could do, I was as honored to do it as a soldier would be wearing a suit and a uniform and going into the battlefield. This little bit I can do. I can guide you through the night. I can encourage you. I can comfort you. I called Mrs. Wont's daughter and told her, she talked about the 10 minutes of horror where her mother was murdered. I said, when she finished, I said, don't let the 10 minutes of horror destroy the 90 years of life. What is 10 minutes against 90-some years of raising you and feeding you, changing you, and loving you, and getting to see you grow up? Don't let the enemy so blow up the 10 minutes that it eats up the 90 years.
Wow.
The pulse beat of where somebody is, and to be able to be there for them, that does it for me. Who am I?
Yes, sir.
That's, if you chase me all the way back to being a little boy on a paper route. My sister tells the story about me finding the German police dog. The mother had died, and all the puppies were trying to nurse from her, and the mother was dead. And I got a box and put them all in a box and brought them home. Poured out my mother's Palmolive bottle and filled it up with warm milk and a little bit of oatmeal. I don't know why. Shook it up and nursed the puppies and kept them alive. That's who I am.
Who you are,
So the only thing that I'm asking for the people that is watching us tonight is who are you? And find something to do that is a reflection of something that's actually in your inventory, rather than to pimp somebody else's gift and prostitute them. See what God has given you and bring it to fruition. Because before there was thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not have no other God before me, thou shalt not, before it was all of that, the very first commandment was be fruitful. And in order to be fruitful, you have to find the seed of grace that exists down inside of you and work with it until you bring it to fruition.
Bishop, you all right?
Yeah, I'm good.
Who do you look up to?
Who do I look up to?
Who do you look up to?
Nelson Mandela was amazing to me. He's a famous name that I could call. Colin Powell was somebody that I personally respected and knew and had a little bit of a email relationship with. But most of the people that I look up to, Bishop Watkins is my father. You know, I can't even articulate what all he is to me without crying. But most of the people I look up to are not big name people. They're people like Chrissy at work, who raised her 2 kids and still managed to get everybody something for Christmas with a little bit of money. They're people who took nothing and did something with it. They're people who fought back their hallway gray. Oh my God. Who had 8 eye surgeries and went through dialysis all while we were traveling and never let me see him. When we went to bed, he went to the dialysis to get dialyzed. And when it was time for us to go, he was always down front in a suit ready to go. He was one of my great heroes.
Wow. Listen, thank you for giving me the greatest interview of my life. Not many people will be able to say they interviewed the greatest communicator in the world. You let me do that tonight. And what was supposed to be 30 minutes has been an hour and a half.
Wow.
And you're amazing. The world is better because of you. We're all better because of you.
Thank you.
And if nobody's told you today, I want to tell you, I love you.
I love you too.
And we thank you,
for
taking time.
We didn't tell everybody about the wheel. What we were supposed to do. So here's the pitch. You do the close. The wheel is the place where you get your dreams in shape. Whether they're entrepreneurial dreams or personal dreams, or whether there are dreams for your own mental health, or whether there are dreams for you as a single mother or father or entrepreneur or business person. The wheel is designed that in your building years, somebody is touching you and shaping you, and you're interacting with other builders and becoming everything that you could be. And I allowed it to happen and put pastor over it so that it would be an organic way for you to learn how to have friends, learn how to have community, learn how to hold a job, learn how to get your credit together, learn how to have ownership, learn how to have a really functional relationship with God. And the reason the will is important is because all of the generals are going home. And it's your turn up to bat. And if you don't take the bat, the entire world will go to hell. And we really need to make sure that we have done everything we could possibly do to get you ready to stand over home plate. And when that ball comes at you, swing like hell.
Woo.
I mean, swing like you ain't gonna ever get to swing again. Because it's your turn and it's your time. And the will puts the final touches on you that prepares you to be shaped into what God created you to be, even if that's not what you had planned to be yourself. That's why you need to be a part of it. Whether it's online, whether it's streaming, whether it's physical, it's a tutorial program that's designed, a GPS system that will point the way into what God has ordained for you to have. We don't have to do it. We don't just need to do it. It's our gift to you. You don't have to pay a membership fee. All you have to do is care. And if you care, not about me, about you, then get on the wheel. Scars and all, wounds and all, mistakes and all, and let him shape you into something that can grow old with dignity and power, and your latter day will be your greater day.
Wow. Thank you so much, sir. Number one, for coming on tonight. Number two, for bringing up the will and talking about it. You allowed us to do it. The will comprises of three generations. It's generation X, Y, and Z. And it's a shared space for us to come together and do exactly what we're doing now. A baby boomer talking to an X. And there's many X's on here tonight. And there's many Z's on here tonight. We're all on here tonight. And it's a shared space that Bishop has allowed us to uniquely fit spirituality, academics, entrepreneurship, community all together so that we can do things differently and have fun, build community. One of the greatest things about the Potter's House is over 30,000 people. And as Bishop and I were talking, when a church that large, sometimes you lose intimacy. So he allowed us to construct this will so that we could bring that into these generations together to share conversation so that sustainability is not far off. It becomes something that we can all walk on because we're sharing secrets and to wealth and how to build. And he's been so gracious to us that he's opened up his connections to give us an even greater experience than the average ministry can have. We have a leader that's known across the world, and he has opened up his contacts for us to have these type of conversations, to ask questions, to probe, and to get answers and to be encouraged. So all of you, if you would go follow our page, it will help us build because we're in our building years. Bishop, I want to ask one more question because of how you said this. What encouragement can you give to, let's say it's an X, a generation, an X, because Generation X starts at 41 years old, but he's not done. She's not done. She's still in her building years. He's still in her building years, but he's headed into the 50s. Okay, the 50s are closer than the 20s. What encouragement can you give them to know that even though they may be headed into the 50s or 45s, 50s, that they still got some time and they still can build and they still can go after it?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked me that. Build something that your old man can eat. Build something that when you're 70 and 80 years old, you won't be at the mercy of the people who are supposed to take care of you but may not. Now's the time for you to get really, really serious. Now's the time for you to start thinking about what a second home would look like. Even if you have to put a renter in it to make the payments. Now's the time for you to plan on the next 20, 30 years of your life and plant the seeds now. You're 42 years old, but think like you're 70. Feed that old man and that old woman that you're going to be so that you don't end up sleeping under a bridge or depending on a child who don't have time for you. Because just because you birthed them doesn't mean they're going to take care of you. They may not be bad people. They just may not be able to lift you and move you and set you around and do what all needs to be done. This is the worst time for you to be a fool. This is the time for you to get your priorities in line, your goals set, your strategy clear. What's the worst thing that can happen to you? I'm assuming that you're saved. You're not saved. Let's put that at the top of the list. What's the worst thing that can happen to you? Is that you die early. But don't plan on dying early. I'm seeing harvests off of things that I did at 40, just starting to come in at 65. It's worth it. It's worth it. Plan your strategy and plant a tree that will grow big enough that it takes 20 years to reach its full height. So stop planting grass and lilies and plant some trees that will grow with you. Because when you are older, you will only eat what you planted now.
Planted. That's it. The mic is dropped. That's it. It's over. Bishop, we love you. Get some rest. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Y'all give Bishop some hearts, please, so he can see him on his way out. You're amazing.
Thank you.
And go be Clark Kent. Chill.
I'm gonna do just that.
All right, bye-bye.
I'm gonna go back to being an old fool.